Stay right where you are for just a moment, won't you? I'm going to have the conversation now dominated by Representative Steve Cohen, Democrat from Tennessee, also a member of the Judiciary Committee and someone we love to talk to. So it's nice to have you back. So you've got, about 2 hours and 45 minutes until you're on this conference call with House Democrats. What will you be discussing, and are you expecting to find out anything on the actual report today?
Well, we hope we will. Before the Democratic caucus has a conference call, the Democratic Judiciary Committee will have one. We're the Committee of Jurisdiction. I don't know that the calls will be that much different, but we'll have more interaction with our chairman, who will be the leader of our party and looking into oversight. Not that Chairman Schiff won't do it on intelligence, and Chairman Cummings also, but it's going to be judiciary, which is going to look at a lot of the issues. So we really have to wait and see what the Barr releases is the high points of the Mueller report. We don't really know. There's so much involved here, and there's so much smoke, and there's so much protestations by the president. Shakespeare said the lady doth protest too much. And this man's been protesting for a long time to an extreme degree. He is the lady. Trump is the lady that Shakespeare wrote about.
So from what we've seen so far and what we've heard about the Mueller report, no new indictments. Does that take the edge off of all of your calls for impeachment, which you've made in the past here and all over the place?
Well, not at all. There's a different degree of proof for indictment and for impeachment. One is not necessarily, it's high crimes and misdemeanors, but that's not necessarily a criminal offense. It can be just actions by the White House that make the Congress feel that he's not worthy of being president and representing the country in a proper fashion. Not a political decision, but definite actions and that demean the office and hurt the United States of America with he being president. So it's a different standard. And then the Justice Department regulations or policies say that you can't indict a president. So, you know, it could be that the evidence came to a level where you could indict the president. We'll find out what's said about Mueller and what Barr allows us to see. And that would certainly be a crime if he did, in fact, conspire with the Russians. We don't know what it's going to say, but there could be a lot there that's not necessarily an indictable offense, but is maladministration, which is something that could be considered a high crime and misdemeanor. So the bottom line is oversight. Impeachment's not the only thing on the table. The big thing is oversight by the people's elected representatives, the people's house of the president, for possible misdeeds and actions, and for looking into whether there needs to be legislation that would prohibit certain activities by an inaugural committee, activities that would prohibit certain actions by a campaign committee, and maybe changing the special counsel legislation. I think we now see the special counsel legislation needs to be tighter, and it really needs to mandate a report to the Congress, and that some process by which we go through jointly to see what might be a grand jury and what might be sources and methods, but certainly not allow the White House, if they are a subject, to see it before it goes to Congress.
Certainly that last point you're making for the sake of transparency. I want to take a listen to what House Intel Committee Chair Adam Schiff wants to see from Mueller. Here it is.
The Congress is going to need the underlying evidence, because some of that evidence may go to the compromise of the president or people around him that poses a real threat to our national security.
So the president's relationship with Russia, what kind of evidence, sir, would you need to see to consider it a threat to national security?
Well, I think you'd need to know why he wrote that note for his son for the Trump Tower meeting to claim that it was about adoptions when it clearly wasn't about adoptions. It was about dirt on Hillary Clinton. Why did he do that? He knew that Russia was offering information, that Russia wanted to help. He knew and didn't disclose to the American public at the time and far after that he was negotiating with having a Trump Tower in Moscow, and that he offered to give Putin a immensely expensive, I think the entire top floor, and he was going to give that to Putin. There are other indices that Trump had contacts with Putin. He said it himself that he knew Putin and talked about him, then he denied it. But you can't hardly trust what he says, but all of his actions with Putin have been suspect. So many people in his campaign and his administration lying about contacts with the Russian ambassador. Flynn lied, Manafort lied, they all lied about this. Michael Cohen lied, all about the Russia involvement. There's something there, there's so much smoke that there's fire, and you know it. But we'd like to see that, and that certainly would question whether our president is looking out for his personal interest or the American interest when it comes to foreign policy and NATO.
Couple of people very close to the president. There have been reports that Jared Kushner is providing documents to your committee. I want to know what you can tell us about that. And also Hope Hicks is reportedly cooperating with your committee. I'm curious what you may have learned from her yet, anything, or the kind of information you will be looking for from her. You can take Jared first and then go to Hope.
I haven't had a chance to see a synopsis of what either one of them have submitted or will submit. I think they're going to submit, so it's really too speculative to make any comment on either one of their statements.
Okay. Can I ask you about something you said to my colleague Lawrence O'Donnell last night? Let's take a listen to that.
Robert Mueller was limited to Russian involvement in our election. We are not limited to that, and we could have laws that we see that need to be passed concerning interference in our elections.
So, look, you've said your committee doesn't have the same limited scope that Mueller did. Can you give us any more insight into what direction the judiciary investigations may be going? Things you want answered?
Well, I know we're going to have hearings on the emoluments clause and hearings on pardons and the pardon power, and whether or not attempts to offer them will come into that hearing, whether that's obstruction of justice. So we'll be looking at obstruction of justice, we'll be looking at abuse of power, and we'll be looking at emoluments clause violations. All of these are important oversight responsibilities of Congress to look at and see if there are laws that need to be changed. And if they lead to find out information that makes people think, including Republicans on the Senate side, that there needs to be impeachment to protect our country, so be it. But it doesn't necessarily have to be an impeachment issue. It can just be fact-finding for the American public and for possible legislation down the line.
Representative Steve Cohen, it's always good to speak with you, sir. Thank you so much for your time on this big news day.